You wake up, war outside, plague everywhere, people dying by the thousands, and you are the most powerful man on earth. 170 AD, somewhere near the Danube River, cold wind, wet ground, blood. The emperor sits in his tent, a man named Marcus Aurelius, 50 years old, worn down, watching his empire crack. He grabs a piece of papyrus, and he starts writing to himself. Not for glory, not for history, for survival. These notes will become the Meditations, a handbook for controlling your mind when everything around you is falling apart. And the techniques inside, they will teach you how to see reality in a way that makes emotion irrelevant. Most people let these emotions control them, dragging them through life like a dog on a chain. Marcus Aurelius figured out how to break that chain, and he did it while running an empire during one of the worst disasters in human history. Between 165 and 180 AD, the Antonine Plague killed an estimated 5 to 10 million Romans. At its peak in 189, the disease was killing up to 2,000 people per day in Rome alone. That is a mortality rate of around 25% of those infected. At the same time, Germanic tribes kept smashing into Rome's northern frontier, trying to break through the Danube. The Marcomanni, the Quadi, the Iazyges, wave after wave. Marcus spent over a decade on campaign, from 166 to 180, fighting battle after battle in freezing rain and summer heat. His co-emperor Lucius Verus died in 169, probably from the plague. His wife Faustina the Younger had at least 12 children with him, and most of them died young. His empire was bleeding, his body was weak, and his mind should have shattered. Because Marcus built a system, a mental framework that stripped emotion down to its bones and reconstructed reality piece by piece. He did not invent Stoicism. That came from Greece, from men like Zeno of Citium in the 3rd century BC, refined by Chrysippus, then carried to Rome by Epictetus in the 1st century AD. But Marcus took these ideas and tested them in the furnace. He wrote them down in Greek between 170 and 180 AD, mostly during military campaigns, mostly at night, mostly alone. The book had no title. Scholars later called it Meditations or To Himself. It was never meant for public eyes. It was his private laboratory for sanity. Also, comment which city you are hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources like The Inner Citadel by Pierre Hadot, published in 1998 by Harvard University Press, which provides a detailed analysis of Marcus's spiritual exercises drawn directly from ancient Stoic texts, and the Cambridge Companion to Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, published in July 2025, which examines his approach to emotions as value judgments based on Stoic doctrine. Now back to the information. Out of your hands. Marcus wrote in Book 6 of the Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That line is famous now. But when he wrote it, he was staring at reality. His enemies surrounded him. His soldiers were sick. His plans could collapse at any moment. And he reminded himself, none of that matters. You do not control the plague. You do not control the Marcomanni. You control how you think about them. And if you decide that, you have added suffering on top of pain. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Marcus spent years drilling this distinction into his own skull. Modern psychology calls this cognitive reframing. Cognitive behavioral therapy, developed in the 1960s by Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis, operates on the same principle. Your thoughts create your emotions. Change the thought, change the emotion. But Marcus was doing this in the 2nd century. No therapist, no research studies. Just him and a page in the constant pressure of empire. Another impression. Your mind says, I have been wronged, I must respond. Another impression. Marcus wrote in Book 12, point 26, the first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are. He trained himself to see each impression as a piece of information, not a command. The insult is sound waves. The heat in your chest is a biological response. The thought I have been wronged is a story your brain invented. None of these control you unless you let them. If an evil has been pondered beforehand, the blow is gentle when it comes. Marcus took this seriously. In Book 2, passage 1 of the Meditations, he wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil." That sounds dark. But Marcus was not being cynical. He was being prepared. If you expect people to be difficult, you will not be surprised when they are. Surprise magnifies emotion. Preparation neutralizes it. You create a mental map of the scenario. Then, when it happens in real life, your brain recognizes it. This is the situation I prepared for. The shock is gone. The fear is reduced. You respond instead of reacting. Soldiers use this technique before combat. Surgeons use it before high-risk procedures. Marcus used it before meetings with senators who wanted him dead. Marcus applied it to everything: loss of wealth, loss of health, loss of loved ones, loss of his own life. He wrote in Book 4, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." That is not a coping mechanism, that is a reframe. If you see loss as change and change as natural, then loss stops being a catastrophe. It becomes a transition. You can grieve, you can feel pain, but you do not add the layer of "this should not have happened," because it did happen. Nature does not care about your preferences. Marcus spent decades watching children die, soldiers die, civilians die. He could have drowned in grief. Instead, he wrote, "Everything is only for a day, both that which remembers and that which is remembered." Book 4, passage 35. He was reminding himself that he too would be forgotten. This was not depression. This was perspective. All the sea is but a drop in the ocean. Mount Athos is but a clod of earth. The whole of present time is but a point in eternity. All things are petty, easily changed, vanishing away. This is not nihilism. This is proportion. Your problem feels massive because you are standing too close. Step back, and it shrinks. When you zoom out, the brain shifts from the emotional centers, the amygdala and limbic system, to the rational centers, the prefrontal cortex. You stop feeling the situation and start thinking about it. Marcus used this during the Marcomannic Wars. The battles were brutal. In 171 or 172, during a campaign against the Quadi, Roman forces were trapped without water. A sudden rainstorm saved them. Ancient sources called it the rain miracle. Christian writers claimed it was the prayers of Christian soldiers. Pagan writers claimed it was Marcus praying to the gods. Marcus probably saw it as weather, a natural event. Nothing divine, nothing special, just the universe doing what it does. He wrote about it in Book 5, "The universe is change. Life is opinion." He did not let the drama inflate the event. He zoomed out, saw it as a blip. Moved on. If you know you're going to die, you stop wasting time on things that do not matter. Petty grudges, social status, material possessions. None of it survives you. Marcus owned an empire. He could have hoarded wealth, built monuments, indulged every desire. Instead, he auctioned off imperial possessions to fund the war effort. He lived simply. He focused on duty, because he knew that in 100 years, no one would remember the gold he collected. They might remember the way he ruled. He wrote in Book 4, passage 48, "Think continually how many physicians are dead after knitting their brows over the sick. How many astrologers after predicting with great pretensions the deaths of others. How many philosophers after endless discourses on death or immortality. How many heroes after killing thousands. How many tyrants who have used their power over men's lives with terrible insolence as if they were immortal. And how many cities are entirely dead. Everyone dies, no exceptions. Once you accept that, fear loses its grip. You stop avoiding the topic. You stop pretending it will not happen. You integrate it, and then you live differently, more intentionally, more freely." His family, his sanity. Then he would return to the present moment and realize he still had them. This created appreciation, not for what he wanted in the future, for what he had right now. He wrote in Book 7, "When you rise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." This was not empty positivity. This was conscious gratitude built on the awareness of impermanence. Everything you have will be taken from you eventually. Either you will lose it or you will die, and it will not matter. Knowing this, you can choose to appreciate it now, or you can take it for granted and suffer when it is gone. Negative visualization forces you into the present. You cannot appreciate what you have if you are not paying attention. Marcus applied this rigorously. He had power, but he visualized losing it. He had soldiers, but he visualized them betraying him. He had his son Commodus, but he knew Commodus could die or turn out to be a disaster. And Commodus did turn out to be a disaster. Marcus knew it. He wrote warnings in the Meditations about rulers who indulge in pleasure and avoid duty. He was probably thinking about his own son, but he did not let that knowledge paralyze him. He did his duty. He trained Commodus. He made him co-emperor in 177. And when Marcus died on March 17th, 180 AD in Vindobona, modern-day Vienna, Commodus succeeded him without opposition. Marcus could not control that outcome. He could only control his own actions. Every impression that enters your mind is neutral until you give it a value judgment. You see rain. That is neutral. You think, "This is bad. My plans are ruined." That is assent. You added the judgment. Marcus trained himself to withhold assent until he examined the impression. He would ask, "Is this impression accurate? Is it useful? Is it within my control?" If the answer was no, he would not assent. He would let it pass. This is incredibly difficult. Your brain wants to judge immediately. Evolution programmed you to make snap decisions because slow decisions got your ancestors eaten by predators. But Marcus was not facing predators. He was facing complex political and military situations where snap judgments could be catastrophic. So he forced himself to slow down, pause, examine, then decide. Constant vigilance over your thoughts. Pierre Hadot, the French philosopher who studied Marcus extensively, wrote in The Inner Citadel, published in 1998, that this practice was the foundation of Stoic spiritual exercises. You cannot control what enters your mind, but you can control what you do with it. Marcus wrote in Book 5, passage 19, it takes the things before it and interprets them as it sees fit. He was describing the mind's power. You are not a passive receiver of impressions. You are an active interpreter, and you can change the interpretation. This script is researched and factual, using sources like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, translated by Gregory Hayes, and published by Modern Library in 2002, which provides accessible English translations of the original Greek text with extensive historical notes, and The Philosophy of Cognitive Behavioral Therapy by Donald Robertson, published in 2013 by Routledge, which traces direct connections between ancient Stoic practices and modern therapeutic techniques, showing how Marcus applied these methods under extreme pressure. Now back to the information. Marcus would look at it and think, this is just grape juice that has been left to rot. He wrote in Book 6, passage 13, when you are dealing with meat, fish, or fowl, consider what they are. This fine wine is just grape juice. This purple robe is just sheep's wool dyed with shellfish blood. Sexual intercourse is just friction and the spasmodic ejection of mucus. Such notions get to the heart of things, penetrating them and exposing their true nature. This sounds harsh, but Marcus was not being cruel. He was being precise. He was removing the layers of meaning that culture and habit had piled onto objects. A purple robe symbolizes power, but it is wool. Expensive wine symbolizes wealth, but it is liquid. Strip away the symbols and you see the thing itself. Then you can ask, do I actually want this thing? Or do I want the symbol? And he wrote in Book 4, passage 33, all is ephemeral, both what remembers and what is remembered. He saw through it. He knew that in 200 years, his name might be forgotten. And 2,000 years later, we still read his words. But that was not his goal. His goal was to live according to reason. And he did. Marcus constantly reminded himself that he was part of something larger, not just the Roman Empire, not just humanity, the entire cosmos. He wrote in Book 10, passage 6, everything is interwoven and the web is holy. Nothing is separate. Everything is connected by a sacred bond. This was not mysticism. This was physics. Marcus believed in logos, the rational principle that governs the universe. Modern science calls it the laws of nature. Gravity, thermodynamics, entropy, these are the rules. You do not get to break them. You can accept them and work within them, or you can fight them and suffer. Marcus chose acceptance. He wrote in Book 4, passage 23, everything harmonizes with me, which is harmonious to you, O universe. Nothing for me is too early or too late, which is in due time for you. Everything is fruit to me, which your seasons bring, O nature. From you are all things, and you are all things. To you all things return. Marcus wrote in Book 9, passage 1, injustice is a kind of blasphemy. Nature made rational creatures for each other's sake. To harm one another is to violate the natural order. But nature itself is not unjust. It simply is. Marcus did not rail against fate. He did not ask, why me? He asked, what can I do with this? It was the only thing worth pursuing. He divided virtue into 4 categories. Wisdom, the ability to see clearly. Justice, treating others fairly. Courage, acting despite fear. Temperance, controlling your desires. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, was indifferent. Not bad, not good, neutral. You could have them or not have them, and it would not change your virtue. Marcus wrote in Book 6, passage 16, the perfection of moral character consists in this, to pass every day as if it were the last, without excitement, without apathy, without pretense. He was not preaching. He was holding himself accountable. Every night, he would review his day. Did I act with wisdom? Did I treat people justly? Did I show courage? Did I control my desires? If the answer was yes, he slept well. If the answer was no, he planned to do better tomorrow. He struggled with the weight of duty, but he kept working, day after day, year after year. No excuses, no self-pity, just effort. He wrote in Book 8, passage 56, the mind is troubled not by things themselves, but by the judgments it makes about things. Remove the judgment, and the disturbance is removed. This is radical. Marcus was saying that physical pain, illness, and discomfort do not control you. Your reaction controls you. If you break your leg, the pain is real. But the suffering, the mental anguish, the why is this happening to me, that is optional. You can feel pain without suffering. You can be sick without despair. You can face death without fear. He wrote in Book 2, passage 17, of human life, the time is a point, the substance is in a flux, the perception dull, the composition of the whole body subject to putrefaction, the soul a whirl, fortune hard to divine, fame a thing devoid of judgment. In a word, all things of the body are as a river, and all things of the soul as a dream and a vapor. Life is warfare and a stranger's sojourn, and fame after death is oblivion. What then can guide us? No, only one thing, philosophy. And this means keeping the spirit within us free from violence and unharmed, superior to pains and pleasures, doing nothing at random, nothing falsely and with hypocrisy, not needing another to do or not do something, accepting all that happens and all that is allotted as coming from the same source as itself. And above all, waiting for death with a cheerful mind, as being nothing else than a dissolution of the elements of which every living being is composed. The plans Marcus had to annex Marcomannia and Sarmatia, 2 new provinces that would have secured the Danube frontier permanently, were abandoned. Commodus had no interest in war. He had no interest in duty. He wanted gladiatorial games, luxury, and power without responsibility. By 192, he was so hated that he was assassinated. Historians later called Marcus's death the end of the Pax Romana. Edward Gibbon, writing in The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire in 1776, said that the period from Nerva to Marcus Aurelius was the happiest time in human history. After Marcus, chaos. Do not be surprised when they disappoint you. Do your duty anyway. Marcus made Commodus co-emperor in 177 because he had no better option. Civil war would have killed more people than a bad emperor, so he chose stability over perfection, and he prepared himself emotionally for the consequences. That is the ultimate application of his system. You cannot control outcomes, you can only control your response. Marcus did his best. He ruled with justice, he fought with courage, he wrote his philosophy for himself, never expecting it to survive him. And yet, 2,000 years later, we are still reading it, because the techniques he used are universal. If the answer is no, let it go. When you face a problem, visualize the worst outcome. Then ask, can I handle that? The answer is almost always yes. When you feel overwhelmed, zoom out. See yourself from above. See the planet, see the cosmos. Your problem is a speck. When you wake up, remember you will die. Then ask, what matters today? When you have something, imagine losing it. Then appreciate it while it is here. When you make a judgment, pause. Ask, is this judgment necessary? Is it accurate? Is it helping me? If not, withhold assent. When you see an object, strip away the meaning. See it for what it is. Then ask, do I actually want this? When you feel alone, remember you are part of the whole. You're connected to everything. Act accordingly. When you act, choose virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. Nothing else matters. When your body hurts, separate yourself. Your mind is free. The pain is temporary. The choice is yours. Marcus called this ataraxia in Greek, unshakability. You cannot control the storm, but you can control the ship. By the 19th century, it was famous. Frederick the Great read it, Goethe read it, John Stuart Mill read it, Matthew Arnold read it, and in the 21st century, it exploded. In 2012, the Meditations sold 16,000 copies. In 2019, it sold 100,000 copies. Why? Because people are drowning. Social media, political chaos, economic instability, personal crises. Everyone is looking for a way to control their minds. And Marcus left a blueprint. He felt grief. He wrote about it. He felt fear. He wrote about it. But he did not let those emotions dictate his actions. He used reason to guide his responses. That is the Stoic ideal. Not emotionless, emotion disciplined. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology in 2017 found that people who practice cognitive reappraisal, which is what Marcus did, report lower levels of anxiety and depression than people who suppress their emotions. Reappraisal works. Suppression backfires. Marcus was ahead of his time by 1,800 years. The Cambridge Companion to Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, published in July 2025, examines this distinction carefully. The editors note that Marcus endorsed the Stoic ideal of apatheia, which does not mean apathy in the modern sense. It means freedom from destructive passions. He did not reject all emotions. He rejected unhealthy emotions. Anger that leads to violence, fear that leads to paralysis, grief that leads to despair. He accepted appropriate emotions, joy from virtue, love for others, gratitude for life. The difference is control. Healthy emotions serve you. Unhealthy emotions enslave you. Every time something bothers you, ask, can I control this? If no, let it go. If you struggle with fear, use premeditatio malorum. Every morning, visualize one thing that could go wrong. Then visualize how you would handle it. If you struggle with perspective, use the view from above. When you feel stressed, close your eyes. Imagine yourself from space. Watch your problem shrink. If you struggle with gratitude, use negative visualization. Pick one thing you value. Imagine losing it. Then open your eyes and appreciate that you still have it. If you struggle with judgment, use the discipline of assent. Before you react to anything, pause. Ask, is this judgment necessary? Then choose. If you struggle with desire, use decomposition. Look at the thing you want, strip away the meaning, see it for what it is. Then ask, do I still want this? If you struggle with isolation, use contemplation of the whole. Remind yourself, I'm part of something larger. My actions matter because they affect the system. If you struggle with purpose, use the practice of virtue. Ask, am I acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance? If yes, continue. If no, adjust. If you struggle with pain, use separation. Remind yourself, my body is not my mind. The pain is real. The suffering is optional. If you struggle with mortality, use memento mori. Every morning think, I could die today. What matters? Not enlightenment, just self-respect. Can you look at yourself at the end of the day and say, I did my best? If yes, sleep. If no, do better tomorrow. You need attention. Watch your thoughts. Examine your judgments. Choose your responses. That is all. Marcus did not have advantages we do not have. He had more stress, more responsibility, more loss, and he figured it out. If he can do it while running an empire during a plague and a war, you can do it while sitting in traffic or dealing with a difficult coworker. It is mechanical. Strip away judgment. Examine impressions. Withhold assent. Zoom out. Remember death. Practice virtue. Separate body from mind. See the whole. Do the work. That is it. No shortcuts, no hacks. Just daily, relentless, unglamorous effort. And the result is not happiness. The result is freedom. Freedom from unnecessary suffering. Freedom from external control. Freedom to act according to your values, regardless of circumstances. That is what Marcus left us. Not a promise that life will be easy. A blueprint for surviving when it is not. The scale of the conflict was staggering, and Marcus was there, in the center of it, writing about how to keep your mind calm when the world is burning. That is the final reveal. The Meditations was not written in a library. It was written in a war zone. Every line was tested in real time. Every technique was forged under pressure. And it survived. The Empire did not. Marcus knew it would not. He wrote in Book 9, Passage 29, how quickly all things disappear, bodies into the physical world, memories into time, and all the things we once marveled at. He saw the end coming. But he did his duty anyway, because that is what virtue demands, not success, effort. His remains were scattered. His statues were toppled. His empire collapsed. But his words remained. Because the techniques he used are not Roman, they are human. And as long as humans feel emotion, they will need what Marcus left behind. A cold, clear, uncompromising method for seeing reality as it is, not as you wish it to be, and acting accordingly.